Hey, I'm Trey. Today's story is about a serial killer who blamed the killer's own body parts as for the cause behind the murder spree committed. You might want to stick around till the end to hear what this killer had to say about it after being apprehended. Seriously, guys, your mouth will hit the floor because mine did. If you're interested in stories like these, I upload new content every Tuesday and Thursday. Please don't forget to leave your comments or suggestions in the comment section because I'm always interested in your input. Well, if you're ready, let's get started. (1871) in the country of Brazil, Jose Amaral was born as the son of a slave. His parents were both captured in Africa nearing the end of the slave trade. One parent was from the Congo and the other was from Mozambique. They were both transported separately to Brazil into slavery. As a child, Jose dreamed all the time about becoming free. How most of us take our freedoms for granted, most slaves just dreamed of having normal lives where they would just work, take care of their families, and have a home. Eventually, Jose's parents were freed and Jose became an adult. At 17 years old, he considered himself an adult enough to find his own path in life. He applied for many jobs but was turned down by most. This wasn't because he was unqualified, because most of the jobs were manual labor jobs, but it was because he was black. Now, isn't that something? The jobs that they were forced to do for free based on skin color, they were now no longer qualified for. That's madness. I'm sure that being discriminated left him feeling hopeless and bitter. Jose was looking to have a normal life, such as go on dates and have a family of his own one day, but was unable to get around this major hurdle of being jobless. I'm sure women were not lined up around the corner enthused to date a homeless, unemployed black man, especially during those times. This more than likely left him feeling resentful due to no fault of his own. After some time passed, Jose was still unable to find work, so he decided to try his luck and join the Brazilian army. While in the army, he was sent into combat on several occasions, which he learned how to kill the enemy. It was believed, but not confirmed, that while Jose was in the military, he became sexually attracted to men. During that time, he was believed to have several intimate relationships with his colleagues. Jose became wary of war, not just because of the killing, but his life of being a soldier was not what he planned for his life to turn out. Jose still yearned to be a family man and also find a regular job. Depressed, Jose began to not take his job seriously any longer, so on several occasions he would just abandon his military posts. He was reprimanded on many of those cases, but he continued to be defiant. Leaving any military service post without permission is a criminal offense, so he pressed his luck repeatedly. He was a good soldier, and his superiors tried to look out for Jose. Eventually, the military officers gave up on Jose's foolishness and sent the military police in search of him. He was eventually located and arrested. Jose was charged for his transgressions and spent several months in a military prison. He was eventually released from jail, dishonored, and discharged from the military. Now, Jose was forced to live with the realization that life had not changed much as a civilian for blacks. There was still a lot of racism, nepotism, and favoritism waiting for him. He began to feel like he was unlikely to have the life he aspired for. Years of resorting to working petty jobs for food, he eventually wound up becoming a homeless drifter. Jose traveled anywhere he thought he could find work. He frequented the suburban and rural areas in hopes of finding sporadic petty work doing manual labor jobs on farms. I'm sure if we could ask him now, I bet that military life was starting to look better each and every day. The older Jose became, the more resentment and rage he harbored. In the year 1926, by the time he turned 55 years old, it was believed that Jose had enough of being patient, waiting for his dreams to come to fruition. He decided to take matters into his own hands moving forward. Jose observed a 27-year-old man, whose name was not provided, walking alone in a secluded rural area. They didn't know one another, but it was believed that Jose struck up a trivial conversation with the young man, asking him simple questions. After realizing that they were both all alone and the stranger dropped his guard, Jose attacked them. The unidentified man began to defend himself. Unfortunately, Jose was much taller, stronger, and was trained in combat, so the odds were stacked against the young stranger. During the fight, Jose was able to overpower the man, and then he strangled him to death. After the man was strangled to death, he then removed the man's clothing. Jose then drugged the dead man to an even more isolated area and then laid the man face down in the grass. While the dead body was still warm, Jose then proceeded to sodomize the deceased corpse repeatedly. Now that's disgusting on so many levels. I don't know whether to scream or cry. After Jose was done, he dressed himself and dumped the body near the local airport. The young man's body was found several days later by a local resident and the police were notified. At that time, there were no witnesses or leads. The police had hoped that this was an isolated incident that wouldn't happen again because they were completely baffled. Their hopes were soon to be dispelled. Several weeks later, the second body of a young man was located, obviously murdered, and dumped near the same airport. Much like the first homicide, the unknown man was found completely naked and had been strangled to death. An autopsy had been done and it was determined that the victim had defensive bruising stemming from the attack, and he had also been sodomized. The police still had no witnesses or leads to go by. Not too long after the second homicide took place, a third man was found dead in the same general area and also naked. The police were sure that they had a serial killer in the vicinity, but still no information that would help catch the villain. All the police could do was wait until the actor slipped up, or if any of the witnesses would hopefully come forward. Soon after the last homicide, the police got their wish. One day a police officer happened to be walking all alone on patrol when an unnamed young man literally ran up to the police officer completely out of breath and hyperventilating. The guy was so frazzled that he was unable to speak coherently. The officer reassured the strange man that everything would be okay and he would see if he could help him with this issue. The officer repeatedly told the unknown man to calm down and catch his breath so that he would be able to understand what he was trying to say to him. When he eventually was able to catch his breath, he notified the officer that he was just attacked and narrowly escaped with his life. He went on to add that a black man tried to scam him of his money. When the unnamed young man did not fall prey to the stranger's scam, the stranger then began to attack him. It just so happened that this young man was also a trained fighter. Even though the attacker was much larger and stronger, this young man was able to defend himself to the point where the attacker began to lose the fight. The actor then fled for his life. Initially, the officer did not believe the young man's story, but the area that the incident took place was near where the other 3 male murder victims were located. The police officer couldn't ignore the possibility that this could be all related. After a brief search of the area, the police were able to easily locate the attacker a short distance away. The actor was identified as Jose Amaral. The authorities were able to torture the confession out of him. Now that's funny. I'm shocked that the police actually admitted to this. The police were probably like, "We'll make you tell us that you did this." He eventually gave specific details that only the killer would know pertaining to each homicide. The authorities were so proud of themselves that they took complete credit for Jose's apprehension. They in turn notified the local media of their success. The media spread the word throughout the community and also took it upon themselves to label the killer as the Black Monster or the Black Devil. Hold on, if this name wasn't so appropriately funny, it would be borderline racist. The local community was enraged and wanted Jose to be executed immediately. The authorities had a psychological evaluation done on Jose, but the results were not provided. The psychologist did provide the public with an explanation that Jose gave for his killings. Now check this out, you're never going to believe this. Jose informed them that he was actually attracted to women, but because his penis was so enormous, no woman who saw him naked would have sex with him. This caused him to migrate over to having sex with men. I guess in his mind, one hole is just as good as another. Wait a minute, you guys are going to hate me for this one? But I'm sure his confession sounded a lot like this. You gotta believe me, officer, my slong is so huge I had no choice. Allegedly, also some men were afraid of his penis size, so sex was few and far between. Jose was more than likely frustrated due to his lack of sex with willing sex partners. This probably compelled him to kill and rape men. Jose was charged for the murders and given a trial date. A few months later, Jose died of tuberculosis in jail waiting for his trial. If you enjoy more stories such as these, click one of the suggested videos above. God bless and stay safe.